Welcome, everybody. This is Microsoft Teams community call. It is April 2021, April 20th. And today your host will be Vesa Juvonen. I'm a program manager in the Microsoft 365 platform team and running a lot of the community stuff together with MABs as well. Now, today's agenda, we're going to have a slightly different agenda than typically. We're looking into this feedback on this structure. So please let us know on aligning some of these monthly community calls on a similar kind of structure. So you will know that the demo section starts quarter past, and then we'll have 3 demos typically on there. And there will not be too long demos as well, because quite often we see that when the demos are too long, people are getting tired of watching them. This time we have 3 different demo presenters who are Stefan, Rick, and Abby. And both and all of the 3 are MVPs this time, but for the following ones, we'll absolutely have engineering people again on this on the Microsoft Teams demo as well. Now, before we go to the demos, let me actually go through some generic slides and updates, which we want to do related on our Microsoft 365 platform community. There's a lot of assets available for you, which you should be taking advantage as the Microsoft Teams platform developer, or an architect, or a technical decision maker, or person being interested on these things. We have 2 different YouTube channels. We have Microsoft 365 developer YouTube video channel and Microsoft 365 community video channel. Slightly confusing that there's 2 of them. That's historical reasons, but in both of them you'll find videos related on Microsoft Teams development and Microsoft 365 development in general. We have a lot of open source assets for Microsoft Teams, SharePoint, Microsoft Graph, and all of that stuff, so you can easily start find an example to get started. But we wanted to make finding samples even easier. So we're building a set of galleries right now, a multiple set of galleries. For example, AKMS Teams samples is this Teams sample gallery where you can easily find all of the different samples which are available in GitHub. So you don't have to go to the GitHub and trying to find the relevant sample. You'll go to the Teams sample gallery, and then you can use search and filtering and mechanisms depending on what you're looking for, and then you will be redirected to the GitHub. So we're trying to make it as easier for you to find these reusable assets. And if you're looking into a one location, because there's so many URLs, one location to actually get access on all of the documentation links, video links, sample links, gallery links, that's AKMS M365 PMP, which is our Microsoft 365 platform centralized community location. Now, before we go to the other areas and news from the engineering side, let me actually throw the quick intros to David, because I think, well, David, you do such a good job on introducing Sharing is Caring initiative. I'm not going to take anything away from you, so take it away.
All right, thank you, Vesa. Well, it's important to know, friends, that the Microsoft 365 community is open source and very inclusive. There is a ton of resources available to us, but sometimes we know that using those resources or contributing back to those resources comes with certain hurdles, such as understanding GitHub, or in fact, knowing that as community contributors, we can actually update and edit and provide documentation that lives at docs.microsoft.com, among so much more. Those hurdles, though, can prevent us from getting involved. And so Sharing is Caring is an initiative by the Patterns and Practices community that provides hands-on guidance on a number of topics. You can see some of our upcoming sessions span the spectrum of developer, non-developer, getting involved as a presenter, maturity model practitioners, and Ask Me Anything opportunity, a wide array of opportunities for you to get involved as a community contributor, as someone who just wants to use the resources, and be provided that hands-on guidance. These sessions are open source, free. They're not recorded, so they're safe space opportunities to ask questions. Tons of people have joined them. It's a great way to collaborate with others all around the globe in a very collaborative and fun way. aka.ms/sharing is caring. We schedule sessions all month long at different times of the day so that no matter where you are in the globe, there is ideally an opportunity for you. So again, free sessions. We'd love to collaborate with you and see you get more involved. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions, and you can learn more at aka.ms/sharing is caring. Vesa, back to you.
Excellent. Thank you, David, on that one. Now, a few other updates and news. I just want to make sure that we're repeating some of the URLs. So if you're looking into getting started on Microsoft Teams development, do not miss out our Microsoft Teams development sample gallery. It is the easiest way to get started on finding community samples and also Microsoft samples. So we're updating this all the time so that all of the samples which are externally available, internally available, publicly available in GitHub will be listed in this gallery. Sooner or later, we are actually working on a unified Microsoft 365 sample gallery as well. So sooner or later, all of these AKMS addresses will be pointing to one unified location from where you can find what's relevant for you, regardless how you're looking Microsoft Teams, Power Platform, list formatting samples. So really want to make it as easy as possible for you. A few other things which I actually going to do a quick live demo on this one as well, because we want to make sure that people are aware of this. So something which we built together with Microsoft Teams engineering within the, let's say, winter timeframe is our Microsoft 365 Extensibility Lookbook Gallery. And this is really intended to showcase what's possible within the Microsoft 365. So as an example, what are the extensibility options in the Microsoft Teams, but also showing scenarios, so business ideas or let's say business sparks for you to take advantage. And to be able to understand what this is actually all about, let me take 2-minute quick demo to show it so you are understanding better how things are intended to work. So I'm going to go to the adoption.microsoft.com, and that's the address where we can actually find this. And then we're going to go to Solutions and Extensibility Lookbook. So Solutions and Extensibility Lookbook is the location where it's located, or using the AKMS address, which was in the slide. I'm going to repeat that and show that in a second. But basic idea of this one is then that you're able to select which product, type of an app, which is basically looking this extensibility in Microsoft 365 in a slightly different perspective, or a different scenarios from an industry perspective, and what are the assets and samples and stories behind of all of these things which are available for you. So as an example, in the product sites, let me go to Microsoft Teams selection. We can see apps in Teams meeting is one of the extensibility options in Microsoft Teams. I will click that one. I will be provided additional set of details and assets and resources related on the apps in the Microsoft Teams meeting. I can have a look on the videos linked from the YouTube channel. We can have a look on the pictures. We can have a look on the stories and all of that stuff. And we're updating this all the time. So all of the latest and greatest videos and guidance is available in the Extensibility Lookbook. You can also find solutions, so sample solutions and samples and documentation related on that particular technical approach. So really intended to kind of showcase what's available for you, for example, in the Microsoft Teams area or anywhere in the Microsoft 365. Now, from my perspective, really the golden nugget here is scenarios. So if you're an ISV or a partner looking into ideas of what kind of things you can build in Microsoft 365, these are worth of gold. So as an example, you can go to banking and financing services, and you can have a story related on business to consumer chat center. I'll open it up, and we will actually able to see a scenario storyline related on business and consumer chat center. We can actually walk through the process and walk through the details related on what's actually happening, who's making that, who's doing what, different personas, different experiences with multiple pictures. And if you don't like the UX, which we're providing in here, you can absolutely also download everything what we're showing as a presentation. So then you can actually access the assets and information and the storyline as you want offline from your computer as well. So really, really, really great asset for making ideas of what can be built in the different industries in Microsoft 365. So highly, highly recommended set of assets in the Microsoft 365 Extensibility Lookbook. Cool. So just to recap on that one, the URL was AKMS M365 Extensibility, and that will actually guide you to the right location directly, or then going to the adoption.microsoft.com, and from there solutions and then extension gallery. Now, a few news and updates, relatively recent articles from the official Microsoft Teams platform blog. So there was a really great set of tips. This is a three-step article series related on building Microsoft Teams with best practices. 2 of those articles are now out, and the 3rd one is coming relatively soon. But we highly recommend you to check this out. They're calling out the documentation points, assets, and other storylines for anybody who's looking into building solutions within the Microsoft Teams. The other really important thing, you should be aware of this already, is the Microsoft Teams Toolkit. which also provides set of tools, controls, reusable controls, and other assets for you to take advantage. So there's Figma files, there's layouts, avatars, color definitions, iconography, typography, and the reusable controls, and so much more available for you to take advantage. The intention of these controls is to make sure that your solution, which is designed for Microsoft Teams, will look like the native out-of-the-box solutions which Microsoft is providing. So we in Microsoft engineering, we're using these exactly the same controls for building, for example, the Power Platform experiences, which are being then exposed through the Microsoft Teams UX. So please, please, please take advantage of these assets. They are really, really, really good. So absolutely brilliant stuff. Now, we're going to try something new in the Teams community call, but if you've been in some of our community calls in the past, we've probably seen this as well. So let's try to do a group photo. And this is not going to take more than a few minutes. I'm going to actually start Camtasia recorder here. And I'm going to move the together mode to that screen. And 1 second. And there we go. There is a 50 people attendee limit. So let's see how many people do we actually get. Do we get the limit? Should I do actually enable my video as well? Maybe I'll do that this time. So I will get there and let me start the recording. We can see the counter going down. It is actually recording. So let's do some waving. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining. Real faces of the behind of the people of the community. And thank you for that. And that's a quick GIF animation, which we'll catch as well and share it together with the community call notes. But thank you for that one. And right on the schedule, which is good. So let's actually jump in to Stefan Bisser, who joined on a call. I can see, Stefan, you are in the back row on the group photo.
Yeah.
So Stefan, take it away, and you'll start with the Microsoft Teams bot story, right?
Yeah, right. So I'll walk you through how to build a bot for Microsoft Teams, or actually build your first bot for Microsoft Teams. Kind of funny, as all of these demos today are being done by a group of people who have actually founded a thing called Select Tech. So we have a YouTube channel out there with a lot of stuff out there. You can see some extended things on our YouTube channel as well, if you'd like to. But what does a bot in Teams actually offer, or what features could a bot potentially consist of when you build a bot for Microsoft Teams? What does it offer? What kind of features does a bot consist of? First one is obvious, chat, either one-on-one chat, group chat, or you can actually add a bot to a team or respective channel. So you can have that conversation in that channel with the bot as well. Then you got messaging extensions, both search-based and action-based, which always consist of a bot in the backend doing the logic stuff for you in most cases. Or you could have a task module built using a bot using the bot framework SDK and a lot of more stuff. And as you can imagine, for all of that, you would need to at least write some code until now, because there's a new feature or a new tool called Bot Framework Composer, which is a kind of visual interface for building bots. So you have basically two options to build a bot, use or free. Mainly within the Microsoft space, either go with the Bot Framework SDK, go with Power Virtual Agents from the Power Platform respective, or use Bot Framework Composer, which is kind of a visual interface for building bots using the SDK underneath. Without further ado, I'd like to jump into a little demo which I've prepared. So when you download the Composer tool, it's a installable tool, so you can install it on whatever OS you'd like to. And if you open it up, you get a lot of choices for either grabbing resources which are out there published by the Bot Framework team, by the Teams platform team, and whatever PG kind of does bot stuff in the Microsoft space. And then you have, as I have the most recent version installed, you have a lot of templates to be selected. So you could go with a really blank bot, which basically consists of nothing, up to you can have a enterprise assistant, which already comes with a lot of business logic in there, with a lot of dialogues in there. And it's a kind of starting point, which you can use to develop your own enterprise assistant. You can also make use of skills which are available and published by Microsoft, like people skill or calendaring skill. And both template versions are either available in C# or in Node as a preview. But I won't create a new one because I've already prepared a bot for that session. And that bot basically was derived from the Enterprise Assistant template. So it comes with a lot of dialogues in there. It comes with a lot of triggers in there. So on the left-hand side, you see your dialogues, you see your triggers. So if you would have to create a team spot in the past, you either had two options: either go with first of Q&A maker to establish a set of FAQ knowledge base where you have questions and answers, and then create a bot from that knowledge base, which basically just does answering the questions you have in the knowledge base. And the other option would be to develop your bot using code, either C# or Node. And all of the team-specific functionalities like task modules, like messaging extensions, and all of that, you would need to write code to achieve that in the past. And this slightly changed nowadays, as you can see here on the left-hand side, where you have the option to do that without writing real code. But I would like to just briefly demonstrate you what my bot consists of right now, as I've just created this Enterprise Assistant template. And I've created a Microsoft Teams application, which you can find in the Microsoft Teams docs, or if you create a Teams bot, it comes with that out of the box. And if I just start my bot and say something which it doesn't, or which it should know, like a question, how to implement human handoff, this would usually go to my Q&A maker knowledge base and give me an answer. But as I said, as I have just created an Enterprise Assistant template, it has no connection to either knowledge source. So I would need to actually implement that within Composer. So to make your bot aware of any kind of knowledge base or language understanding piece, you just enable the features within the app settings. So I've just prepared my Q&A app settings. You need to insert your host name, your knowledge base ID, and of course the columns, right? And if I restart my bot, and you'll see how fast and simple that kind of build process is, because I just restart the bot here locally, have ngrok up and running, and if my bot will start, I can ask the same question: how to implement human handoff, and now it should at least. Oh, now it's finished, so I need to wait a little longer. Now, if I go in here and or if I ask the question, it still gives me, sorry, I didn't find the answer, because what I didn't do yet is whenever the let's say user-ends isn't clear, it just gives me out the message, sorry, I didn't find an answer to your question, and we'll replace that because we want to go to our Q&A maker knowledge base to answer the user's questions right away. And there's a pre-configured, what Composer calls action to that. So it just grabs the settings file, grabs the Q&A maker settings, and just queries the Q&A maker knowledge base with that. And after the restart, it should basically use the question I asked the bot, go to Q&A maker to my knowledge base, query my knowledge base if there's any question in there which might be applicable, and if so, it just gives it back to me within the one-on-one chat in Microsoft Teams. So as it's finished, let's go back to Teams, how to implement human handoff, and okay, no human handoff question or answer for me, but we see at least it didn't give me the same answer in here. It gave me another one. And the demo gods are not with me on that one. Doesn't matter. Let's switch to a more advanced scenario because it's about Microsoft Teams, and Q&A is just one part of it. But what I really wanted to show you is how easy it is with Composer to use all of that Teams functionality without actually writing code. So you can pretty easily these days build task modules or messaging extensions without the need of being a real developer these days or a hardcore developer. So what you need to do in order to make that work, Composer consists of a package management solution where you can actually add packages to it, which are more or less NuGet or Node npm packages. And I've already installed the Microsoft.bot.components.teams package. And if you install that, you get a lot of Microsoft Teams specific options, either for trigger management. So you have a trigger type or category in there, and then you can select which kind of Teams event should your bot listen to. And as you can see in here, there are a lot of events for messaging extensions, a lot of events for task modules. So either if the user wants to fetch a task module or if the user submits a task module, there's a certain event triggered. And I've already prepared that for my task modules. So I have 3 different triggers on task modules. And as you can see in the condition, each of those has a different condition. If I just switch back to my Teams one-on-one chat and I just insert help in there, we get 3 different options, which more or less all of them trigger certain or a specific task module: help, survey, YouTube. Going back to Composer, we have help in here. And within help, there's a nice little gem to fetch out certain Teams information without the need of actually writing or wrapping up to Microsoft Graph or something like that. There are predefined actions in there for getting Microsoft Teams data, either the member of the conversation in a one-on-one chat, would that be one, or the members in a channel or in a group chat, infos about the channels, team details and stuff like that. Which I'm using here is the get member, so I can actually get user information whenever the user clicks on the help button. And after that, I'll send a task module response in form of an adaptive card. So the adaptive card is pretty basic. Going back to the Teams chat, if I click help in here, I just get an adaptive card, but I don't get it directly within the chat window. I'll get it as a task module in here. And in there, as you could imagine, you can basically show anything in here. It doesn't have to be an adaptive card, because if I switch back and if I go to YouTube, I can also include URLs in there. So I can actually insert any URL, any type of web application in there, which basically fits the frame of Microsoft Teams. And I can then basically do whatever I want to within that task module. So it doesn't have to be an adaptive card. It could be, let's say, a web application. It could be a SharePoint Framework web part, or it could be anything else outside of the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. So we have really basic adaptive card, which is kind of static in that help option. But you can also do more dynamic content in here. Let's say we have a survey, which is also an adaptive card. And in there, you have 2 options. How do you preferably develop bots? You can either choose from Bot Framework SDK or Composer. I just choose Composer and then click one of the 2 buttons in here. And what it will do now, it will trigger the submit action, because I have submitted the task module now, and it will then respond with another message or response message within that task module. And all of that is possible without writing a single line of code in there, because you can use the predefined options. So I have the task module fetch action, where I just show my survey card, which is an adaptive card. And if the user submits that action or that task module, we basically get the choices of the user, so we can actually read the data or the response value of the user within the task module and do certain things with that. So in my case, I just read the user's choice data, and then I'll just, depending on what the user picks, send out a message as a task module response, which is kind of easygoing compared to if you would need to use code for that. As I said, this is rather new, so if you want to try it out, you need to install Composer's nightly build. So you need to enable the preview features in there. You need to add the package in the package manager in there. So this package is built by Microsoft, which comes along with all these actions and triggers for Microsoft Teams. There's another one for Graph, so if you want to combine them too, you can actually build pretty cool team spots without the need of using code or being a developer per se. And if you want to have further resources, there are a lot of documentation out there on the bot framework docs, as well as on the Microsoft Teams docs for building bots. So if you don't want to use Composer, but you want to use or develop a bot using code, you can still do so. There are a lot of samples out there, as I already mentioned in the samples gallery. So you can basically start with boilerplate code with samples and go from there. Back to you, Vesa.
Thanks, Stefan. Don't stop sharing it. I will ask the question because I know that you're a specialist in here. You wrote a few books about it and everything else, and you've been working on a bot framework for many years. But what about so this feature, what we're showing in here, versus the Microsoft Power virtual agents? Yeah. What's the dependency, and which one do you use, and why this one rather than the other one?
So Power virtual agents is, in terms of the functionality you get, rather limited because the Composer tool itself is really extensible. So with that package management solution, you get packages built by Microsoft, but you can also use packages built on your own. So if you have a certain need for, I don't know, querying CSOM in your bot, you can actually build a package where you wrap all that content in the back and then just provide actions for that. So your Composer users can actually use those actions for you. Whereas in PVA, you just have the options which PVA offers you. So Composer is rather extensible in that way.
Yeah. So you might kind of say that the Composer is then between the code option and then the Microsoft Power virtual agents. Definitely. And the virtual agents is the low code or the simplistic, the most easiest way to do things.
Yeah,
sure.
Definitely. So in PVA, you just start, and if you for some reason can't go any further with PVA, you could just hand it off to Composer and work along with Composer.
Yeah. Because behind of the scenes, it's the same technology regardless. Yeah. So, which is really cool. So behind of the scenes is still bot framework. It's the question is just the abstraction layers which we're adding on top of it, so to say. Yeah. So thank you, Stefan, on that one. Really cool stuff. And let's jump on Rick Van Rooselt's screen, and we're going to talk about surfacing your existing solution in Microsoft Teams. So getting started on that one. I think this is quite important thing to understand as well. So how do we actually do this? Take it away.
Let's get started. So your existing solutions in Microsoft Teams. Well, of course, in the beginning of every company, of course, has a web-based application. It can be a custom-based application. It has to be a web-based, of course, because Teams is also web-based. We're not going to run exe files or even PAT files in Microsoft Teams. But if it's web-based, then we can surface it in Microsoft Teams, which makes it accessible from where everybody's working at. And most people are working in Teams these days. So yeah, just few clicks and your application that you either built 10 years ago or a year ago or whatever, or even a third-party application that you built, that you bought somewhere or your company bought somewhere, servicing Teams makes it much easier for people to access. You don't want to know how many intranets I've seen that were just a massive amount of links because people needed to find all their applications somewhere. So Teams isn't fancy or anything special in that case. It uses iframes, which it's a well-tested framework. It's a web technology that's already been around for a long time now. It has its perks, it has its drawbacks. So there are things we have to take into consideration. One of them is security. So if you once build an app, if it's a web-based app, you should have built security into it. It used to be the X-frame options, making sure that your app was not iframeable, because if somebody can log in and they can iframe your login page, if you really want to try it out, try iframing the the Office 365 or Microsoft 365 login page. You won't be able to do that. Why? Because yeah, then somebody can iframe your web page with the logins and then put it on their own web page and then hide it with some CSS, and then somebody can steal your data or your login credentials. So yeah, these are all trusted and very old. The X-frame options is already an old one. Nowadays it's content security policy that will protect your app. So if you did your job not correctly, but yeah, if it's an internal app, I don't want to, it's not that like I always do it, but still it should be there, but it's not always there. If it's there, you have to take that into account. We'll look at that a little bit later. But yeah, of course, your app has security, but Teams also have some security measures in place, which means that, normally if you run something from a web page, then making requests to different domains, that's not allowed. You always have to do requests to the same domain. But of course, if that was the case, then the internet wouldn't work, because we all had to host our own files and images and JavaScript files and whatever. So there is a trick to it. Well, in Teams, it's called the valid domain. So if we add a domain to our manifest, if we do the App Studio, it's all automatic. But if we add entries to our valid domains, that will make it servable in Teams. So that way we tell Teams, hey, you can do this domain, it's from me, it's safe. So go ahead and serve content from it. Now, easiest way to get an application in Teams is a static tab. So a static tab is a personal tab, like you see on the left-hand side of Teams. You can just, within a few clicks, get something in there, get a working application or an existing application inside of Teams. Of course, do we need a more Teams-aware application? So if we're building something from scratch, or if we really need to have something Teams-aware, then of course the Teams SDK comes into the picture. But just to add it, it's pretty basic. We create a static tab and we're good to go. Let me show you. Now, I have created the most fancy app you will ever see. Actually, it's just file, new project, new .NET, start new project, and you're good to go. So you'll probably recognize how cool it looks. So give it 1 second to start up. There we go, should be running now. Yep. So I think everybody recognized this from the day they started development. So if you're not a developer, you can also do this, of course. As long as you have access to deploy apps in Teams, you can also get an existing app inside of Teams. So this is my cool company app where you can order lunch. So very ugly, but very basic. I think everybody who did a few lessons in development can already build this. So I need to get this running, of course, inside of Teams. Now, because this is running locally, I of course also have ngrok running, which makes it servable from the web. If you have your web application running somewhere, if it's already an existing one, it should be serviceable from the web. Now in Teams, I think we all know that, and if you don't know that, take a look at it. App Studio, easiest way to get started, because if you need to get an app inside of Teams, it's with a manifest. We call it a manifest. It's a JSON file. It describes what does your app do, who created it, what is the company name, what's the features of the app. So if you don't like JSON, or you're just starting out, then this one is the simplest. Why? Because there's a UI that will guide you into everything. I already created one. This is of course my test app 1, which is a really cool naming, because in other tenants I'm already at test app 95. So just give it a name. This is the things you really have to do. It has to give you a unique ID and a version number, of course, and all that stuff. Give it your own name. Nothing fancy. But we add a personal tab. Within that personal tab, I'll just click edit for now. We just give it a name, an entity ID, which is I think for the people who come from the SharePoint background, an internal name, or something that defines it as a unique ID. Just call tab again, and I just gave it my URL. So just my normal, where my app is running. In this case, it's a public URL. Click save. We click install. Of course, you need to have permissions to do this. Not everybody can do this. So if you're not a tenant admin or you're not a Teams admin, then this is it's not allowed in your company. It's gonna be a little bit harder, but you can still download this package and maybe give it to some administrator in your company who can then install it. I can just click install because this is a demo application or a demo tenant, so I'm in full charge here. I click on add and I already get my app running. Should be running here. Where's my Teams? Yeah, of course. The security, that's what I meant. So I built this app normally according to best practice. So I said, no, you cannot iframe my app. So if you didn't build the app yourself, if you're not a developer, just ask, hey, Mr. Developer Man, or if you're your own developer, just say, okay, I want to make sure that teams.microsoft.com, where Teams is running, of course, can service my app. So now I'm allowed this. As you can see here, these are the X-frame options. These are the old ones. Those still work in Internet Explorer, of course. But if you want to be modern, these days, content security policy is like the new version with a lot more options. So you can say, images can be shown from this domain, and I can iframe it from this domain. And so there's a lot more options than only just the X-frame of the old one. So I have it back running. So if we're going to try it again, so I just click refresh, we have our company app. Now some things, so here I can order my lunch, of course. Yeah, cool, I got a cool pop-up, yeah. So some things we have to take in consideration, of course. You already might notice it. We have our Teams navigation here. We have other navigation here. So the About tab is here, a tab. We have, because this was my original application, we have some navigation here as well, which makes it, of course, yeah, if you have a really complex application with a lot of navigation and a lot of a lot of stuff going on, it might get a little bit complex. So if you're converting existing applications to be shown in Teams, take that into consideration, that maybe you want to, put a small part into Teams and not the entire application. The thing that's really necessary to be in Teams and not the entire navigation structure with the 5 million links in. Now, I did this for C#, but it doesn't matter. It's iframe technology. Whatever you like from a development perspective. If you have an app that's running, I don't know, SAP, as you can see here, this one is Node. So I'm running Node as well. I already created it in advance. So this is of course, my test app too. And my really cool Node skills, which are not that nice. Should be running. Is it still running? Yeah, it should be. There we go. See how cool? See, in this one, I already created Teams specific. Why? Because I added the SDK. So this is a Node app, but of course I did it with the generator, so it already knows. They already built in Teams specific JavaScript that makes sure that Teams can talk to my app and my app can talk to Teams, which makes sure that I can get, okay, this is my username. But same story, I can just put stuff into Teams, existing stuff. Now, if I go back to my test app 1, of course, how do I get specific? So let's say I have my app in Teams, but I want to get specific, I want to get specific context in Teams. Well, in App Studio, it's really shown pretty good. I will show you in the manifest, really, the JSON file a little bit later. But as you can see here, we have two URLs we can enter, a content URL and a website URL. Now, what's the difference? The content URL is the thing that Teams will show. The website URL is a thing that if you click on the website icon in your app, it will open a second tab or a new browser, depending on if you're in the Teams client, and it will open up this URL. So this way I can say, hey, in the query string, super simple, the context now is Teams. And I can even say, hey, Teams, also provide me with some additional data. You can view whatever, the few things that you can get from Teams that Teams can serve to your application in the query string. You can find on the documentation, of course, it's like a tenant ID or sometimes the channel ID or the Teams ID. So depending on where you are. In this case, it's a static tab, so I can get my username. So let's save this one. Let's see if I can install the new version. I didn't update it, so let's see if it works. Could be that I have to bump the version. Oh no, see, we're already good to go. So in this version, nothing fancy, nothing specific. Yeah, don't shoot me. It's really ugly, actually. I'm almost embarrassed to show you. So if I look here, the only thing I do is get the context out of the query string, get the username out of the query string. If it's Teams, I have my special layout, so my special view without the navigation and with the added hello Rick, so hello my username, and I just show that. While if it's not, then I just use my normal application. So if I now click, see, this is the website icon. If you click here, just open up the normal application. So this way you can just surface your application pretty basic, pretty simple in Teams. Of course, remember what I said about the valid domain. So if you go here, that's a cool thing about App Studio. It already does that for you. I didn't show you that, but that's because it just works automatically in App Studio. If you go to domains and permissions, you will see it already added my domain here. Why? Because it figured out from the tab, hey, this is the domain. I can't even change it, just read only. So App Studio is smart enough. Of course, if you do everything from the manifest directly, which, yeah, if you get used to developing for Microsoft Teams, you do it like this, then of course you can do whatever you want, and you can of course delete it here. Remember, if you're doing stuff like this and you have weird issues like I just had, that it doesn't want to show it or something like that, then this could be one of the problems. And because it's browser based, of course, we can even use the browser geolocation or media. So you can do a lot of normal stuff that you can do in normal web development as well. Now, if we go back to my presentation. So quick wrap up. So things to consider. Okay, responsive web design. I know it's been around for years, but yeah, still not all applications are, and you are already running inside of Teams with the Teams navigation. So, or in the Teams client. So yeah, I wouldn't add a web application from the 90s in there, because then you're gonna see some weird things. Don't do that. Now, like I said, Teams already has navigation, so adding more and more layers of navigation onto it, yeah, it's not not going to make your users have a simple program to use or simple application to use. If you have the time, so quickly add your application to Teams. Won't take you that long, but if you have the time, make your application Teams aware by implementing the SDK. It's even if it's just switching the theme of Teams. So if somebody has the dark theme or the light theme, switching that with your application, with the look and feel of your application, makes a whole world of difference. And of course, adding a different content URL and the website URL gives your application the ability to know if a user is visiting it from Teams. So that was super fast, super fly. I hope you guys enjoy it. And yeah, okay, I think Stefan already did the intro. If you want to know more, select the Tech Show. Back to you, Vasa.
Excellent. Thank you, Rick. I have one question for you. Why would you expose your existing application in Teams?
Because yeah, people are working now these days more and more in Teams, and I think there's a lot of studies out there now these days that say if you switch focus too much, that yeah, it's not good. You lose time. You have to get back on track. If you're already in Teams, you're already working there. It's super easy. Just even if you're in a meeting, I don't want to open up my intranet, click on the next link to go to my CRM system, then click on the next system link to go on the sales system, because that's in my mind the way I have to go to that system, and then find my information. No, if I'm in Teams, I can find my information there while I'm leading it, I'm having the meeting, or I'm having a conversation about it. So that will be the.
Yeah, I was pretty sure that you have a good clarification on that as well, because I think you covered that in your book as well. So that's what I'm saying.
Thank you, Rick. I'm still sharing.
Yeah, thank you, Rick, on that one. So let's jump then on Appy's screen related on if you have already existing SharePoint framework components, you build something for your portal. Every single SharePoint framework component can be actually really easily embedded directly in the Microsoft Teams, and it's a really easy way of extending things. But I'll let Appy to explain why and how it can be done.
Yeah, so there we go. So Teams and SharePoint framework. Let's get started. So the first thing is you have to be on SharePoint framework 1.8. As of that version, you can actually host the web parts that you build as a Teams tab. Now, if you do that, if you enable that, then what happens is that the tab will be executed in the context of the SharePoint site that is behind a team. So every team that gets created gets a SharePoint site, and what happens is that in that SharePoint, in that SharePoint set, in that context, there will actually be some magic in place that makes sure that you can host or run that web part. Meaning that if you build a web part using the SharePoint framework web part, you can actually expose it as a Teams tab. So it's not a Teams application, it's a Teams tab. and a Teams tab is not a full application in itself. If you want to do more, if you want to achieve different things, then it might make sense to build an actual Teams application. So if you start considering building things, you either have to pick the SharePoint framework generator or the YoTeams generator. And I think Victor is still in the call. Victor built the generator for Teams. Really, really awesome tooling. But if you want to build more than just a tab, if you want to have full control over the user experience, or you want to have full control over your package, then definitely pick the generator for Teams, so YoTeams. If you want to do a web part, if you want to build something that can serve both as a web part or as a tab, then definitely stick with the SharePoint framework generator, because that will allow you to do so. Now,
or as a personal application, or as a personal application, or as a personal application. Sorry,
definitely works as a personal application as well, but that's still a tab, right? Now, the advantage of using the SharePoint framework generator is that there's no need for you to host anything. So there's nothing you need to worry about it. It's just run the generator, add some code wherever you want to add, package your solution, deploy it, and it will work. Done. You're good. Now, within SharePoint Framework, you will have the Teams SDK. So you can actually achieve things where you can check whether you're in Teams, you can show specific messages or show a different set of content based on the location that you're running in. Now, what happens under the covers is when you open a Teams tab, what actually happens is it calls the Teams logon page. So it does a call to the Teams logon page. That Teams logon page actually does a authentication URL generation. So it picks a new URL and it redirects you to that authentication URL. There on that authentication URL, there are some things that are happening from the OAuth client. So what happens is it picks up an access token from the Microsoft Teams SDK, then it sets that access token and then redirects you to the final destination, which is actually a modern or classic page where your web part is running. And because it did the authentication part for you, what you will actually get is Teams context as well as that SharePoint context. Now, before we go into too many slides, let's go to a demo and let's see what actually happens. Now, first things first, basically all you need to do is you'll need to run the generator. So yo at Microsoft SharePoint, and that will walk you through the generator. Now, I'm not going to walk through the full generator. The only thing that you'll need to be aware of is if you're running this, the package you generate has to be a SharePoint Online only package. So if you do the version that you can run on SharePoint 2019, so on premises, then you won't be able to generate that Teams package. That's not something that will work. Now, I'm not going to wait for this. I came prepared. I already made a demo. So what I did is I created an empty project. So there's nothing in there. Now, the first thing that you'll need to do is you'll need to run npmi to install all the stuff that you need. But after that, because it's an empty project, what you get as of SharePoint Framework 1.18 is you actually get 2 images in the Teams package. Those are 2 required images if you are creating a Teams manifest, if you're creating a new Teams package. If you recall from the demo from Rick, you can use the App Studio to generate that structure, but you'll need 2 images. Those images are already there. You can change them if you want, but those are there by default. Now, if you go to your source, what you will see is that you will get a web part, and I generated a My First Teams Hello World sample. And if you go here, what you'll see is that there is on line 15, there is something called supported hosts. And in the supported host, by default, it only shows the SharePoint web part. And you can add either the Teams tab, or you can add, if you want to add more, you can add the Teams personal app. So depending on what you want to do, if you want to do the Teams personal app or the Teams tab, you can add it. And by then, that's all you need to do, or all you need to change in the code. After that, all you need to do to get it running or get it deployed is the gulp bundle with the ship option and a gulp package solution ship. After that, you will have a SPPKG file, the package, your SharePoint Framework package, and you can deploy that and it will work in Teams. Now, It's going to take a few seconds, but once you've done this, what actually needs to happen is you'll need to add it to this location. And if you have a Teams app, if you've done that, you'll need to go to the files. You need to do the sync to Teams. And by that, it will be automatically pushed to the Teams store. So this is going to take a few seconds. There is some delay on it. Now we're not going to wait for it. I'm just going to show you there is already the My First Teams tab. You can pick whether to add it to a specific team. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to add it to my dev team just to show you what happens. Then it will redirect you to that team. It will show you the configuration page. There's not that much to configure. It explains, okay, this is SharePoint Framework, and it will start setting everything up. Now, I didn't write any code yet. I didn't change anything yet. I just enter my first Teams tab, and I can do some configuration. It's a demo web part. I just pulled in the hello world, demo world, whatever you like. And you can see you can change, you can add configuration. And here you can see some context. Now, if you would go to the code, what we actually did is I put in some demo code. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. There we go. As you can see, there is some code in here, but one of the things that is important is we just want to make sure whether we are running in the correct context. So what context are we running? And you can see that we're running in the Microsoft Teams, then we're doing the welcome to Microsoft Teams, or we do the welcome to Microsoft SharePoint. This is basically all you need to know to get started or get working. Now, to show you that it is really that easy, what I did is I downloaded, or I pulled in from GitHub, I pulled in all the client-side web part samples. So all the samples are on my machine, and you can either filter by SharePoint Framework version. You can just pick one that you liked. And I picked one. I think I picked the directory one. Let's see if we can find it quickly. Directory. That's not the search I was looking for. We're gonna not search for it. Now, if you go to that directory web part, what you'll see is that we have a manifest there as well. And that manifest is slightly bigger. It contains some other components. It contains some other information. But here you can see that we have the supported hosts as well. And this one is actually allowed to be used on SharePoint pages. It's for the SharePoint full page, and you can use it as a Teams tab. What I can do is I can just say, okay, I'm going to add it as a Teams personal app, and I'm going to run whatever I like to run. In this case, what I need to do is I need to do the gulp bundle ship. Let me do that. It's going to take a second to load. Then I'm going to do the gulp package solution, and I'm going to sync it to team. So it's going to take me probably a minute, maybe just to get it deployed. If everything is working as expected. Demo. Let me quickly skip this one. Yeah, still gonna wait for this. Really slow demo effect. Well, I'm not gonna wait for that. That's gonna take too long. I'm gonna go to my Explorer because I already pre-populated everything. So let me grab my code. There we go. So within my PNP folder, there should be the web parts. There should be samples. There should be the React directory. There we go. React, scrolling down, React directory. Now, because I already did a package, I have a solution, I have a React directory, SPPKG file, and what I can do is I can drag and drop it here. It's gonna take a second. I'm gonna make sure that it is available in all sites. Gonna click deploy. And once it's there, let me refresh the page. Then here we've got that search directory. I can click on sync to Teams. And once you press the button, it's going to take 1, maybe 2 minutes to show up in Teams. at least if it says successfully synced to Teams. If it's not saying successfully synced to Teams, it won't show up. But if it's successfully, it will show up in Teams. And what you then can do is you can go to all the apps. You can click on more apps. You will get the actual app. It's already here. It's been cached. I'm not sure if I can add it directly now, but because I added it, I changed this web art to be available both as a personal app as well as a Teams app. I can pick either click add as a personal app or add to team if I want to add it to a team. But let's do add. And we go personal app. It's showing the web art. It's showing all persons. And just as a reminder, I didn't write any code. I just pulled in a GitHub repository. All I did is I changed it to be available, and I have a search directory available. And well, there are some users in my tenant, not that many, but you can see it's really, really easy. Without too much code, you can just get it to work in your environment. Now, just a final remark. If you are ever in the case that you want to do anything with web arts on your machine, if you want to do an actual Teams application, if you say, okay, I've got a few web arts, I've got a solution, maybe 3 or 4 web arts, you can actually generate a Teams manifest and put that Teams manifest into the Teams store. So you can use the App Studio to generate that. But if you want to do that, you need to be aware of the URLs that you need to use. So for static tabs, what you'll need to do is you'll need to make sure that there's a content URL, and that content URL that redirects to the Teams logon ASPX page. And within that Teams logon ASPX page, if it's a static tab, you'll need to do the personal. It's highlighted in purple. And you'll need to add the component ID, where the component ID is the GUID of the application. So your SharePoint Framework web art always has a manifest. It has a component ID in there as well. If that matches, then it will work. So you can use this manifest JSON to do static tabs, configurable tabs, and you'll need to make sure that the valid domains are in there as well. If they're not in there, then it won't work. So that way you can actually do this yourself. Now, what's next? If you want to get started yourself, there is this really interesting blog post that explains in detail how to integrate within Teams. And there is this really cool sample of building a Me experience, where in a Me experience, you can see several samples where it all comes together. So it's a SharePoint page where you could just show, or you can show your organization. It's kind of like a preprocessor to the Viva Connections part, but built as a personal application. So really, really cool scenario. And that's it. 1 minute late, so not too bad, I guess.
Not too bad. Thank you, Abby, on that one. And just to recap before you stop sharing is that really the key power of SPFX here is that nothing was actually required to set up in Azure. This solution is ready to be used in production once it's deployed into App Catalog. So everything is automatically hosted. Now, the real thing which we need to remember that SPFX is good on UX. If you need to create a bot or a backend, then you should be looking into Yo Teams or any other Azure functions, integrations, and all of that. So SharePoint Framework is really for the UX layer for the teams as well. And you'll see more and more investments and integration between Teams and SPFX also in the future. But let's actually do final slides and close up the call. And as I'm doing that, just a reminder, as we started today, I said that we have a slightly different structure on these calls, and then typically in this Teams monthly call. Let us know what you think about this one. I know that these are pretty busy calls, so we're trying to squeeze them in 60 minutes, but having like a 15 minutes intro and then 3 demos always after that, and then closing after that. But please let us know what I think on structure. But thank you, Stefan. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Abby, on that one. The recording will be available within 24 hours, though, or within upcoming days in the Microsoft 365 Developer YouTube channel. There's Twitter channels available. There's the next Microsoft 365 General Development Call. That's a bi-weekly call cycle. Is happening on April 29th on Thursdays, bi-weekly. And then the next Microsoft Teams monthly call is happening on May 18th as well. You will see the updated agenda in social media a few days before the calls. There's a lot of calls available in the Microsoft 365 platform. We're potentially looking into consolidating some of these, and depending on inputs related on surveys and all of that stuff. You don't have to join all of them. check the recordings as needed, and please keep on giving us feedback so we know what works and what doesn't work. But that's it for today. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, presenters, and thanks for everybody who joined. We'll be back for Microsoft Teams monthly community call within a month. Thank you. Bye-bye.